Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got some fun DIY crafts coming your way. I also have a sweet friend who's going to be joining me. I'll explain those details a little bit later. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today we'll be working on some patriotic 4th of July home decor. So let's get started with project number 1. For this project, I'm going to use this dry erase board from Dollar Tree. We're going to use it as our backboard. We're going to pretty much cover the whole thing up, but it's just a nice solid piece to use. You could use foam board. And I've got a piece of cardstock cut ready to cover the back. And I also just have some pieces my husband cut for me for framing. So, we can make this into a sign, basically. Nice and easy. You could totally use like paint sticks and cut those for framing. We've done that before. Now this is some paper that I tea dyed last year. This is watercolor paper you can buy at Walmart, or I've got some sketch paper, sketch pad paper I'll show you coming up. Basically, you want like 4 to 6 tea bags, some hot water, make yourself a big batch of boiling hot tea, take your tea bags out, and then you want like a roaster pan, or you can get those cheapy aluminum roaster pans at Dollar Tree. Pour your tea into it, take your papers, dunk it into the tea, take it out, and then I have some, those really big, thin cookie sheets, baking cookie sheets, lay some aluminum foil on it, lay your papers on that aluminum foil in a 250-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, and your paper comes out like this. It's a really easy process, and I'll usually do like a batch of 30 or 40 sheets at a time, so I've got enough to last. Now, the next thing I'm going to be using, this is some, of course, notebook paper. You could use actual notebook paper, but I wanted to, of course, print it out on our tea dyed paper, right? So I found a link online. It's for free printable paper. You got wide ruled, you got college ruled, paper for planners and whatever you want to use. And you can choose the colored lines that you want and everything. Now, they also, different ones on there, the wide ruled, the college ruled especially, also has like under each paper, you click on download and there'll be a word that says like fillable. And you can, from right there, type in what you want and then print it right from the site. But of course, you all know that I like to do a different font. I will list the font I use down in the description box. But so I brought it, downloaded into my Microsoft Publisher program, and then I just typed it up line by line with the font I wanted. But it was really easy. It came out great. And of course, here printed it onto my tea stained paper, and I love it. Again, the link for the free printable down below and the font I used. Okay? So let's move into staining our wood. I'm going to use Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water. I'm going to stain my, frame for my wood pieces. And then off camera outside, I will, use my electric sander and distress them all and everything like that. I often use the Waverly Antique Wax, all know, because it's nice. I love that color for framing. But, you could use brown paint if you don't have the Waverly Wax. Now, I'm going to go ahead and peel off as much paper of this on the, dry erase part as possible. Only because it was like really long, stuck out around the edges, and I don't really want to sand around the edges, so I'm just doing it so you don't see it around the outside, because remember, I'm going to cover it with some black cardstock. Now here what I'm doing, I laid my piece down, and I want to just come in and lay my framing down and just mark here, because I want to sew inside those mark lines on my paper. I do a double sewing here. Now at the end, when you see the final looks, you're going to see the paper and there's no sewing on it, because after my project was all done, I inadvertently did something and it messed it all up, and I had to like take everything off and reprint the Pledge of Allegiance onto some paper, put it back on, glue everything back together again, and I forgot to do the sewing. But now you'll see I always say things look good with or without sewing, so you're going to see that it looks good with or without sewing. I'm taking some black paint mixed with water and my fan brush. I'm wiping off the excess, and I'm just going to tap just kind of along the right edge just a little bit and kind of up on the upper left a little bit. Not too much, just a little bit of splatter. Now I'm adding some Beacon Fabri-Tac glue to my cardstock that's going to cover our back area here to make it look nice and finished off. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue down our little, Pledge of Allegiance thing here. I'm going to roll it on with my little brayer here, make sure the glue's all nice and flat. And then I'm going to use my Beacon Fabri-Tac glue again, and we're going to get our framing down around it. Now, also, I want to mention this is not my idea. I'm going to pop a picture right in here. This is actually from 12timbers.com. It's about $32. I'm not going to do the comparison like I usually do when I kind of do a dupe, but ours came in at about $3, and I think it turned out like really super cute. So I'm going to use this from Dollar Tree, this little coffee thing, and I wanted to cut off the edges so it didn't look like a coffee mug on the outside. And then, and I just cut it off with some scissors, sanded it, and then I'm going to glue it down at the bottom so it gives us an easel for our sign to stand up. And these are some stars from craftingwithkimber.com. I'll have a link down below for you that she's got different sizes you can get. I've been using them for the last couple of videos. And I decided I need, some red, white, and blue on it. So I've got both of these papers and I kind of laid them, on each other, trace the star on it, and now I'm going to kind of just glue those two pieces of paper together because I wanted kind of red and white on top, blue on the bottom. And then I'm going to come in about 1/8 of an inch or so, and I'm going to redraw my pattern perimeter here. So that way when I cut it out, there'll be a little bit of wood showing around the edges. And this is kind of a fun, super cute idea. I like how it turned out. Once that gets all cut out, I'll set it aside for a minute, and then I'm going to come in and use that Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water and just do a little staining around the star, because remember, a little bit of wood's going to show around the perimeter of that paper. And then, of course, I'll bring that paper in and sew it because, it's going to match the area we sewed around our sign until I messed it up when we sewed on the paper until I messed it up, and now the new one doesn't have sewing around it, but the star does, so we're all good. Here's what it looks like with the sewing around the star, and I'm going to come in with the open end of my scissor blades. I'm going to scrape along the edges of that paper. It allows a little bit of white to kind of show around it, and it's going to allow that paper to kind of pop up off the wood and give us a little bit of a rustic farmhouse look. And then I'm going to take some sandpaper and come in and distress around the edges of our wood once that Waverly wax is dried, and then we'll go ahead and glue down our paper onto our star here. I think this looks wonderful. Look at that. See, I love that little bit of wood showing around the paper. And now I'm going to come in and just add a little splatter on the lower right edge of the star so it kind of matches in with the splatter we did on the paper. And then I'm going to glue that onto our sign, and that makes this project complete. So let's see who's joining me today for lots of DIY crafting inspiration. Today joining me is my sweet friend Alicia, whose YouTube channel is Alicia At Home here on YouTube, and we are coming together to bring you lots of DIY patriotic 4th of July crafts you are going to love. Now, Alicia's channel is filled with farmhouse rustic charms. She does crafting DIYs, of course, around the house makeovers. She even does like some DIYs like outside. She does beautiful home tours. I mean, she is just a fully rounded crafting person. You're gonna love her. To top it all off, she's the sweetest, most genuine person. She's funny, she's energetic. Here's a sneak peek at what she's making today. So I want you to make sure that you go check out her video and her DIYs for today. I'll have her link to her channel and video in my description box. And do me a favor, let's help her channel size grow. Leave her a comment, give her a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe to her channel, and in her comment, make sure that you let her know I sent you over. You're gonna love her. With that said, let's move on to project number 2. For this project, I have this like gigantic wooden dowel. It's like size of a rolling pin. Picked up at Habitat for Humanity, like a 4-foot piece for like $2 or $3. And this leftover piece of spindle here that I'm gonna use. Now this one, I'm gonna cut it so I've got 2 different length pieces. And this one I'm gonna cut just so there's a little bit of base left on the spindle. I've got some of these stars again from craftingwithkimber.com, and you can see the sizes. I'm gonna use kind of this, I think it's about a 2-inch size here, star. I'm going to use 3 of these. All right, so here's my pieces cut and ready to go. You can see I've kind of got them all different lengths. You could use the same length if you want. I'm going to use Waverly Antique Wax mixed with water first, and I'm going to stain all of these just so that when I go to paint over the top and then off camera I go to distress them with my electric sander, some of the stain will kind of peek out underneath the paint and give it a nice, real rustic look. I like how that kind of turns out. When I remember to do this, it's a great, look. When I don't, I'm like, oh, I should have done the stain underneath it. So anyway, here I'm just kind of painting everything up with the stain. I'll let it dry. Now, once these are dry, I do go ahead and distress them. I probably didn't really need to distress the spindle, but at least these round ones, because we're going to do some striping on it, and it'll be easier to distress the wax first, because then we'll come back in and distress the striping too. I'm going to go ahead and use the wax as well, mixed with water, and stain our stars so that when we paint over them, it's got the same look. Everything looks cohesive. So on the stars, I'm coming in with Debbie's Design Diary DIY White Swan chalk paint. I'll paint the front and the back of these because you will see them. I love how this project turns out. Might be my favorite or second favorite. I'm not sure. I'll be curious to know which one's your favorite. Now you know which question I'm going to ask at the end. It's a surprise, isn't it? What question I'm going to ask at the end. Anyway, on the two round dowels, I'm coming in with just some washi tape. And this is probably about a 1/2 inch wide washi tape. And I am placing them down, just equal amount of space in between so that, we can paint in between the washi tape to give us our stripes, right? I'm going to do them on both of them. On the spindle, I'm just going to paint it complete blue over the top. I'm not going to tape anything off or anything like that. And I'm painting this one solid color because the other two pieces are going to be striped, and we just kind of want to break up that design element a little bit. So here I am on one of the dowels. I'm painting it completely all the way red. This is Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Barn Red. And when I go to sand both of these dowels off camera, I'm going to leave the tape on because that way the paint won't leak into our Waverly wax area, right? Makes it nice and easy. And then on this one, I am coming in with the Debbie's Design Diary DIY White Swan chalk paint. And I don't know, did I mention what color I painted on? You can see it there in the upper left. It's Dixie Belle Yankee Blue chalk paint that I painted on the spindle. So I'm going to come in just by hand and, go ahead with some sandpaper and distress our stars. I'll distress it front and back because you'll see both sides. This is what they'll look like. I love that rustic look. Here's what my spindle looks like. I've got both my dowels painted, of course, in distress. I'm going to go ahead and peel off the washi tape. You can see on those white ones, a lot of the paint kind of leaked around the washi tape. Washi tape is, thin and flimsy, but, it's chalk paint. That Debbie's Design Diary chalk paint, a little, wet Q-tip, and you can clean up the edges really nice. It turns out perfect. Go ahead and peel the tape off of our red one here. You can clean anything up if you need to. I don't think I need to clean up on this red one, though. It turned out pretty nice. I love how it looks. And then once that's done, I'm going to come in here and I just made some little cute curly wire pieces. I think this is 18 gauge wire. You just cut off whatever length you want. I'm going to, wrap it around a large size paintbrush handle here. Just many twists and turns as you want. I'm going to kind of squish it together, and what I want to do is make each wire different lengths. So as this sets up, the stars are, all three pieces are, shorter or taller, however I want it to look. So I'm just kind of laying it here to see how long I want each of my wires. If I want it a little longer, I'll pull it apart. If I want the wires a little shorter, I'll squish it together just until I get it how I like it. I'm going to use some ribbon here and some cardstock. The ribbon has kind of got a nice weave in it, and then cardstock to help cover it up. Using some hot glue, I'm going to press one end of the wire. Both ends of the wire have nice long straight pieces. I'm going to press that long straight piece into the wire and use that ribbon and some hot glue and a little silicone makeup thing here from Dollar Tree. I'm going to press that around so it holds the wire in, press that ribbon around it. And then I'm putting cardstock over the top of that to really make it look nice and finished off. Okay, you don't have to do both of these steps. You can just add some ribbon on there if you want, but just cardstock doesn't hold it well enough, I've found. So ribbon that's kind of got a weave in it, pressing, with that silicone sponge to really hold that wire nice and tight in that hot glue, and then covering it up with that little piece of cardstock. Like I said, just gives us a nice finished off piece here. Okay, but you do you, cover the back how you want.
All right, I'm going to use my Beacon Fabri-Tac. Oh my gosh, Fabri-Tac glue to get those cardstock pieces on and finished up. I like how that looks. I thought about smushing 2 stars together, but then there was going to be a space between them because of the wire, and I was like, no, we'll just do it this way. Now I'm taking the tiniest drill bit ever, and I'm drilling a hole directly in the center of all 3 of my wood pieces here. I just chose the drill bit that, was the size of my wire. And now I'm going to come and just use some super glue because it's nice and runny. It's going to go down in those holes really nice. So I'm going to add some super glue on the wire and then just shove it right down into our tiny little holes. All 3 of them. And again, if I want to adjust my wire lengths a little bit more by smushing them down or pulling them apart or whatever, I can do that as well. And I leave these just plain. I'm not going to add a tag to them, anything like that. I just want them to look like cute little 4th of July firecrackers, but some different shapes, and that makes this project complete. Let's move on to our last project, number 3. For this project, I purchased 3 of these Jumbling tower block games from Walmart. They were about $6 a piece. Now, the design I created actually calls for a few more than what's in these, but you could totally do it with just 3 of these by eliminating 1 row on the project. So I had enough to add 1 more row. These are how big they are. You could do these with the tumbling tower blocks. Don't you love these names? From Dollar Tree. Just know that it's going to be a smaller project, of course, but you may like that. But here's the size difference, okay? So for this project, if you had extra blocks like I did, it's 156 blocks that you're going to need, okay? Or a minimum of 143, which is 3 of those Jumbling tower block game pieces from Dollar Tree, not including the extra. You're going to need 35 blocks for blue color, 64 blocks for red, and 57 blocks for the stain or white color if you do the 156 blocks, okay? If you do the 143 blocks, yes, I will have this down in the description box for you. You'll need 35 blocks in blue, 57 blocks in red, and 51 blocks in stain or white color, okay? You're also going to need some kind of backing like wood or foam board and framing for around the project, okay? I'm going to be using these colors that we used earlier and our antique Waverly Wax versus white. And I've got all my blocks counted out and divided into piles for, the different colors we're going to use. So the first set I'm doing here is the blue pile, which is the 35 blocks. We're making our star area for our Jihujic flag. I'll be using wood glue today, and you glue these together however your brain operates. This is how my brain operates and how I wanted to put it together, but you do you and glue it into the way your mind and frame set works better for you, okay? So the first thing I'm doing is gluing 5 blocks together, and I will make 7 rows of these 5 blocks, okay? And again, because the way I glued all these together, my husband was like, why did you glue them together like this? I'm like, I don't know. This is how my brain operates. He goes, well, you're making it hard for all your subscribers. I'm like, but this is how I do it. So that's why I'm telling you, you glue these in such a way that is easier for your brain to wrap around it and get this flag together, okay? So blocks 35 are blue. I'm making 7 rows of 5 blocks, 7 horizontal rows here, okay? So this is how this looks. I want you to set aside for a minute. We're going to move on to our stripes. So our flag is essentially 12 rows across, 13 down. For the red stripes, you need 4 rows of 7 and 3 rows of 12. For the white stripes, you need 3 rows of 7 and 3 rows of 12. So that's what I'm working on now, working on my red stripes. I use this little right angle ruler because it kind of helps, keep your blocks as you're gluing across, if you choose to glue how I'm gluing, to keep a nice, straight edge along your, rows of blocks here. So working on the red ones first. Okay, just glue a little bit here, show you my process. Here's my first row of 7. Remember, 4 rows of 7 on the red, 3 rows of 12. I'll do all the rest off camera, and miraculously, here they are. Now, you're going to notice the 3 rows of 12 are actually split in half. That's just for right now for me to be able to move things around because I'm making so many rows of these blocks, right? So the white rows, 3 rows of 7, and then 3 rows of 12. Right? And I've just got all my different piles here so I can keep it straight, make sure I got the right amount of blocks in each pile. You know how my brain operates. We already had that little discussion. All right, and I'm just going to start gluing some of these together. And I'm using the ones I've already made because they're all nice and straight already. So I'm using them as like a barrier to place my other, rows of blocks here together to make sure I have nice straight rows, if that's understandable. So I'll do a few here, and then, of course, I will do all the rest off camera. This last little bit here, and then I'll show you my gigantic pile. Here it is of all our rows of blocks. I know. It really is an easy project. It just kind of maybe looks intimidating with all these freaking rows. So remember our first set of 7 rows of 5 blocks, right? This is our star area. So now my brain operates. I'm going to go ahead and glue these 7 rows together in one large block. I can't glue the other rows because we have to alternate red and white, right? So it can't quite glue those together. And I want to keep them apart for painting because it's going to be easier to paint and distress. All right, so that's why I made these long rows as well. Once I glue all these rows together for our stars, I will go ahead and clamp them off camera. I let it sit for about a half an hour so it's nice and, sturdy, clamped, one solid unit. All right. Now, once that's dry and ready to go, I'm coming in with our Dixie Belle chalk paint, that blue chalk paint, Yankee Blue, as we've been doing all our same colors today on all our projects. I'm going to paint it just one coat. I do one coat on everything because I'm going to distress it anyway, get this painted and ready to go. Now I'm coming in with our red blocks. Nothing's glued together. I'm just holding them together for painting. And I'm painting all our blocks for our red. Remember, we had 4 rows of 7 and 3 rows of 12 for our red stripes, okay? And then we're going to come in and we're going to do the same thing for our white, which I actually did stain for the white, but you could do white paint, of course. And remember, these are 3 rows of 7 and 3 rows of 12. And by the time you're done painting and or staining, all your blocks should be covered and ready to go. If there's any left, you missed something. Now I'm going to just kind of take you outside. I've set up my camera outside, and I'm just going to do a little distressing. And it was easier for me to kind of distress, row by row. Again, my brain operated this way so I could go around the perimeters you see here of each row. I kind of round off the long edges so they're kind of rounded so that when I glue this whole flag together, it gives me a little distinction between all the rows. It doesn't just look like on the star unit, you're going to see it looks like one kind of flat unit, but the stripes all have, I should have sanded those before I glued them together, but the stripes all look like each row is differentiated because I kind of rounded off the long edges. I hope that's understandable. But anyway, and I could just distress as much as I wanted. You distress as much as you want. You might not want to distress it at all. That's okay. But I did try, as you see me here, and I'm distressing on the blue. I tried to really go in like the middle of each and every block. And I tried to make some areas barely sand over so that I had kind of lighter and darker blocks, and then going in between each block help kind of separate the blocks, etc. So here's everything all nice and distressed how I wanted. So now what I'm doing, I'm just using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue for now because it's pretty much all wood glued and it's all going to get wood glued to the base. But remember my rows of 12, I split them into sets of 6 because it was going to be easier for sanding and stuff. I'm just using the Beacon Fabri-Tac glue to connect those 2 sets of 6 to get my 1 row of 12, and I'm going to do that for all my rows. So when you're done, you should have 6 rows of 12, 3 of each color. So here everything is. Got it laid out on my board that I'm going to glue this whole flag to. Now, I'm not going to tell you what size board you need because the framing that you choose to put around your flag might be a different size than I'm going to use. So when you cut your board, make sure it's the size of your flag plus the added size of your framing that's going to go around your flag, okay? So I just wanted to give you that. So again, you need to figure out your own sizing for the back. Now for this next part, I'm going to use some wax paper. Okay, I'm going to put it underneath my flag pieces so when I glue them together with wood glue, it doesn't stick to my board yet. And then I'm going to bring in my framing pieces. I'm just kind of showing you ahead what I'm going to do. I'm going to use these as kind of barriers around the flag, all right, to help clamp everything, my flag, everything together to keep it in place. So this is what we're going to end up doing. Okay, it's going to kind of look like this. That framing is going to help hold everything in one solid unit as the wood glue dries, but we're not gluing the framing or to anything, and we're not gluing the flag to the backboard. Okay, now in showing you that, this next clip, I have to explain what happened. So my flag is now glued together. I thought I was filming, and I know that I was because several times I looked up my camera to make sure I was in view, to make sure everything was going. It was filming, and by the time I got to the last row, I looked up and my phone was completely black. I had enough space on my phone, enough battery power, but for some reason my phone just chose to stop and delete my video, so I can't tell you what happened. But what I did is I just glued all my pieces using wood glue row by row by row all the way up, just like we were doing when we made our pieces. And once those were done, then I glued my whole chunky star block into position. And now we're all back on the same page because luckily I caught it right after I was done gluing. So my flag is all glued, but now, like I said earlier, I'm going to use the framing here to help hold everything together along with the clamps. And again, we're not glued to the backboard, right? We're just laying on that wax paper that's on the backboard. So I'm taking a bunch of clamps, vertical and horizontal, using the framework to kind of help squeeze that center flag all the way together. And this is what it looks like. Okay, and I'll let that set and just completely dry for, I think I let it set for just a good hour. A half hour is all minimum you need, but a good hour. Take the clamps off, and now you can see our flag is in one big unit. Now we're going to go ahead and glue our flag to the backboard. So again, got my wood glue. I'm adding like a ton of wood glue on here. I've already marked where the framing's going to go so that I know my flag is going to be directly in the center, the measurements even all the way around. And then, of course, once I do that, we're going to get our framing on. Now, I didn't discuss the framing. As you noticed, I didn't do anything to the framing. I didn't stain it. I didn't do anything. When I went to, the hardware store, choose my framing that I wanted, I specifically chose framing that had a lot of character to it, a lot of knot holes, some sappy looking areas, that kind of thing. So that would help kind of differentiate from the flag in the center, so I also wouldn't need to stain it or anything like that. And I also think that the little bit of lighter color kind of helps set it off from the flag itself. Now I'm going to come in. I've got everything clamped off, as you see here. Anywhere I can get a clamp, there's a clamp. I'm going to let that sit for, a good hour or so. We're going to move into our last portion. I want to do some stars. I didn't do stars earlier because at this point I didn't know how I want to do the stars. So I'm going to use one of these stencils from EssentialStencil.com. It does come in like a 2-pack, larger and smaller stars. I'll make sure I have that link down below for you. I've got it taped off. I'm going to use a 1/2-inch stencil brush. I'll have that link down below for you as well. I'm using Waverly wax in its entirety, not mixed with water or anything. I'm going to dip my stencil brush into it. I'm going to wipe off any excess onto a paper towel, and I'm going to just come in here and I'm going to stencil in all my stars. At this point, I had to stop because I'm like, I'm going to get that wax on the side of my framing there, so I came in and taped it off. But anyway, I'm going to come in here. I have some of the stars taped off at the bottom, as you can see here, because I didn't want to accidentally get any of the Waverly wax into those, because I don't have room to use all of the stars here. And I come in, I'm going to do off camera all the stars, couple of coats, and this is what it looks like, which is beautiful, but we're going to mess it up. Once that dries here, I'm going to use my heat tool. I'm going to dry my stars up. It'll help lighten that Waverly wax. I want to lighten them because I don't want them as dark. You could leave them dark if you want, but I also want to distress them. So I'm coming in with just this sanding block and some sandpaper I picked up at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to come in and just distress each and every star so that it's still a little darker, but not as dark, but not as light as our, white stripes, quote unquote, so distress how you want to distress, I guess is what I want to say, if you even want to distress your stars. But I really like how this turns out. Once I'm done distressing the stars, that makes this project complete. So I hope you like all the projects that I came up with for you today. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know which project you would love to make right now. There's still plenty of time before July 4th holiday. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're walking in here for the first time, if you give it a thumbs up, it really helps my channel to grow. I'm just saying. If you walked in here for the first time and you're checking things out, or maybe you came over from Alicia's channel, welcome to my channel. If you're digging what you saw today, before you click off, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another video from me. Thank you, Alicia, for joining with me today to bring lots of 4th of July DIY inspiration. Everybody, please remember to go check out her video in my description box. Show her some love. Leave a comment. Let her know I sent you. You're going to love everything she has to make for you today. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. There's a purpose to your every breath under heaven. There's a purpose for the way you live and move and have your being. You were created for your time and your life in this world. Never think that you don't have worth, that you are nothing, because God made you and loves you, and that alone is the very purpose to your every breath under heaven. He thought enough of you to share you with the world. God loves you with a faithful love and keeps his covenant of love with you as you love him and obey his commandments. The Lord fights for you, and he will never abandon you. He gives you a hope and a future according to his plan for your life. His Spirit will always stand by you and lead you and guide you. No matter what happens in your life, you cannot be separated from the God who loves you most. You cannot be taken away from him. He guards you with his all-powerful being. His love is absolute, and he always accepts you for who you are. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.